Hip-hop. It's a culture embraced both willingly and unwillingly by the entire world. It's fashion, language, and art. One of the most pronounced art forms of hip-hop is rap. Rap has gone through several evolutions, and the focus today is on the state of hip-hop and rap. Sean Dorsey, also known by his producer and artist name Klass D, will help take the temperature of the climate of hip-hop. So let's go. And today on Voices, this is an episode that really excites me specifically because hip-hop and rap has been a part of my life for a really long time. I probably started a little late where I was in my teen years when I started dealing with it. But once I was in it, I was totally there. I felt like they was talking to me. And the contributor to today's show is one of my all-time favorites, one of my friends. And he's a producer. He's a rapper. He writes for people. He's worked with so many people. And I really want to thank him and appreciate him being on the show today. So Sean Dorsey is joining me today, also known as Klass D. And bro, thank you for being here. I'm really excited about the direction we're about to go in, dealing with the rap and the state of hip-hop culture. So I firmly believe no person can give a better introduction for a person than themselves. So I'm going to let you give yourself a little intro, and then we're going to jump right in.
All right. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored for you to have me on here. We've been bros for a long, long time. So, it's always a pleasure to be able to have a conversation with you. And just a quick introduction to myself. My name is Sean Dorsey, aka Klass D. As he said, I'm a producer slash MC. Been in this a long time, but to be specific, I've been making beats since 2000. I don't want to give my age away, but I've been making beats since 2000. Been rapping probably a little bit before then, and mostly most of my work has been with a lot of local artists here in the Charlotte area. I've done a little bit of stuff as far as I had an opportunity on one track that I did for R&B artists where I had Inspector Deck on there, which was pretty cool because I'm a big Wu-Tang fan. So that was really cool to say I had Inspector Deck on the track. But mostly, with a lot of local artists and then MCs, and then also with my own projects besides that. But, my passion has always been music production and beats. That was something that I just, wanted to do for a long time. And, once I got the opportunity to finally get access to equipment, I just kind of took the ball and ran with it and just been doing it ever since. Now it's a little bit tougher, being that, you got life stuff and work and things like that. So as you get older, sometimes you don't get as much time as you would like to be able to do everything. But I'm still at it. I'm just right now starting to transition a little bit more, into like television and film production, music for like reality TV and commercials and things like that. I kind of feel like, that's kind of makes a lot of sense for where I'm at right now with everything. And I do plan on, I haven't really been active on the artist side. The last project that I did a project called Preschool. I want to say it's probably been about 3 years now. I did that about 3 years ago, but I'm planning on next year going heavy and releasing possibly up to 3 projects next year. I'm actually working on something right now with a really dope producer that I've known him as an MC, but he just started getting into beats this past year. His name is Satero. And this is actually my first time even talking about this, but I'm actually working on some stuff with him. I think we're going to do an EP, and he's doing all the beats, and I'm just rhyming on that. So that's going to probably be the first thing I put out sometime early next year. And then I'm planning on doing, first time talking about this, I'm planning on doing, I don't know if it's going to be a full double album, but it may be 2 separate albums because what it was before just to mention this, my mom had passed away earlier this year in February. So around the time when she passed, I kind of screeched the music to a halt. But prior to that, during the whole year, while my mom, she had pancreatic cancer. So while she was going through that year, and while she was sick, one of the things that I was doing to kind of, to keep my mind, at peace was, like I said, beats has always been my passion. But when I do write, that's kind of like therapy for me. That gives me a chance to kind of say the things that I normally wouldn't say in conversation. So I did a lot of writing during the time when my mom was sick. Like there was, when I was going with her to doctor's appointments and things like that, I would be writing, songs while I was in the waiting room while she was going to her appointments or whatever. And I kind of hit a zone, and I just wound up writing like a whole bunch of stuff that came about to where now I got like 2 albums worth of material that I could use. So one album is going to be more of a because I try to kind of keep a concept going. The last album that I did was like a concept which was about my childhood. So this next project that I'm going to do, the first part of it is going to be basically kind of like where I'm at now, at this time in my life, and just kind of more about like what I'm seeing, about the world around me and how I feel about things going down, and then just stuff that's just been going on in my life. And then the second part of the album is just straight, just having fun. It's just straight beats, rhymes, just, just vibing on that type of kid. But anyway, I know I'm going over the tangent, but yeah, that's pretty much a little bit of an introduction to me. Oh, besides that, also I've been working with this really dope R&B artist out of Charlotte by the name of Wakia. I'm not sure if she's still signed to them. I think she might still be, but she signed to a label called Street Religion Records. But I've done a number of tracks for her in the past couple of years, and she's supposed to be coming out with an album. I'm still not sure exactly when it's coming out, but I'm doing like most of the production on that. But she's already released like a couple of singles already. The latest one is Love Potion. You can find that on Spotify. Her name is Wakia. And I did the track on that, and she's really, really dope. And we got a pretty good thing going. So, but other than that, just besides just being a producer and being an artist, I'm a fan of hip hop. I'm what you would probably call a hip hop nerd. Same like say like Lewis, man. Like I was actually kind of late getting into hip hop myself as a kid because I tell a story sometimes and people be like, really? I'm like, when I didn't, my parents, at the time when like hip hop was like really prevalent, my parents wouldn't really let me listen to hip hop because we was going to this church at the time, and because of this, they wouldn't allow secular music in the house. So, and this was probably like around when I was in like around 9 years old, something like that. So, and this is when I moved to Long Island, New York. I'm originally from New York, and when I moved out there, we couldn't play any secular music at all. So what ended up happening was when I would go to school, one of my boys, his brother was a DJ, so he used to get like mixtapes from his brother that his brother would make, and then he also would just get mixtapes, around the city and whatnot. So he would actually put me on to a lot of stuff at school. And what ended up happening is I would sneak the tapes. I had my take it back. I had a Walkman, and I would just have like these tapes, and I would just be, listening to, different, songs or whatever through that. And it was from that, like how I really got into hip hop on my own is like the first albums that I actually got myself was like, I think it was Ice Cube Predator was one of the first ones. And then of course, Dr. Dre the Chronic, Snoop Dogg, Doggy Style, and a lot of my stuff and Cypress Hill, Black Sunday. So those were like the first few albums that I kind of got on my own. Like I was really into West Coast for some reason. But then the album I always say that changed my life, that made it to where I wanted to do it myself, was A Tribe Called Quest, Midnight Marauders.
Ooh, yeah.
That was the album that changed my life, because when I first heard that album, and mind you, I was late because they already had like 2 albums already. So I had to go back in here, Low End Theory and People's Instinctive. But when I heard Midnight Marauders, I was just like, yo, what is this? This is incredible. And what I loved about it, besides the production, was just Q-Tip and Fife is like, I related to them. Like I felt like they both of them was a combination of me, because you had the one dude that was just like the smooth, jazzy, poetic, lyrical dude. But then on the other hand, you had this other dude that was just the 5-footer with the roughneck business that always came with the ill sports references. And I was like, yo, this is me. It's like I can actually relate to this. Like these dudes ain't gangsters. They're not selling drugs, because I never sold drugs. I'm not no thug or none of that. So I appreciated that. And then it was through them that I was able to go back and discover De La Soul, and then later on your Common Senses and what have you. And then I just kind of just got lost in the rabbit hole, from there. And just, besides just wanting to be a part of it, I just love the music, and, I could go all the way back to the days when, we used to, have release dates on, what was it? Instead of Fridays, it was on Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah.
Yep, it was on Tuesdays, and it's different now to where we get everything on the phone, and it's just like bam, bam, there you go. It's like, nah, you actually had to go to the record store, and if you really, in the rain and the snow or whatever, if you really wanted that new Redman album, if you wanted that new Wu-Tang, you had to go to Sam Goody, you had to go to Tower Records, you had to go to all these places, and those were moments. That was exciting for me. You know what I'm saying? So. I've been on it like that, since that time. And, I still am very much a fan of the music now. So, but that's enough about me. I'm kind of going to.
Nah, because the thing is, I mean, obviously the first question was gonna be, how did you get on your hip hop journey? But you got that. But it now allows me to segue directly to today's artists. So you got J. Cole, DaBaby, Drake, Travis Scott, Megan Thee Stallion. There's artists out there. And there's always sort of this discussion from generational things of old school versus new school mumble rap and boom bap. Like, so what do you think, like sort of a generalized state of the health of the hip hop culture and rap as an art right now?
Well, I'll say this. If you would have asked me that question like 4 years ago, I would probably be a lot more I would be a lot more negative with my answer, a lot more pessimistic with my answer. Now I could probably say that I think it's in a pretty decent space for the most part. Now I'll say this. I would encourage your listeners, if they get a chance. There's an interview I just came across the other day from Ebro in the Morning show on Hot 97. And they interviewed Kevin Durant. Now, even though it's, mostly about, Kevin Durant's career as an athlete, an NBA player, they did touch on something that I found very interesting, because a lot of people may not know that Kevin Durant raps himself. He's kind of shy with it. He don't really put it out there like that, but he raps himself. So Ebro had asked him, he was like, yo, now that you're in Brooklyn, you should come, to the station and freestyle at some time. But they wound up getting into a discussion about mainstream versus the underground. And Ebro's had that discussion before, but they kind of touched on it again. And how it came about is Ebro had asked Kevin Durant what he was listening to. And Kevin Durant brought up an album, which is one of my personal favorite albums that came out this year, an album by Freddie Gibbs and Madlib called Bandana. And they had asked him what song he wanted to play off of Bandana, so he picked the song. And then Kevin Durant asked him, like, yo, how come y'all don't play this song during the regular rotation? And Ebro broke it down to him, because people may not know that Ebro is the program director at Hot 97. So he determines what gets played during the rotation every day.
Oh, okay.
So he broke down to them that, these certain type of songs, whether you want to call it boom bap or underground or whatever, they're not formatted to be played during the primetime hours, which would be like 5 to 8, I guess, or 5 to 9, right? Because you have to think about the demographic that's listening during that time. And it's mostly people that's coming home from work. They're picking up their kids from school. And when you're in the car most of those people want to hear something that they could vibe to or they could bounce to, something that's kind of danceable and something with some melodies. So if you playing some Freddie Gibbs or you playing some like West Side Gun, that may not really go too well. Saying for me it goes great, but for the average listener that may not be their thing. So that's why they gotta format it a certain way and have these certain songs from your Megan Thee Stallions, from your The Babies, and so on and so forth. But it was an interesting conversation. It's not a very long part of it, but it was an interesting conversation. But I'm saying all of that to say, as far as the state of where everything is at right now, I think it's in a pretty decent place. I would say as far as with a lot of the mainstream stuff. Now, Lewis knows about me. I'm what you would call, I guess, a quote unquote boom bap head or or underground head or whatever. That's just, I come from the era, like I said, of the Tribe Called Quest all the way to Mobb Deeps, all the way to Wu-Tangs, all the way to Boot Camp Click. That's just my thing. But with time, and I have to credit my younger brother, Chad. He's 10 years younger than me, so he has more of and he makes beats too. He goes by the name King C's, and he's dope. He's been doing this thing for about like 3 years now, and I'm real proud of him. So he's doing his thing, and I'm trying to help him out to get things going on his side with the beats. But he really puts me on to a lot more of the current things that's out there. He's actually the one that really put me on to the Baby. He put me on to him probably like, I want to say like 2 years ago. And the first time I heard about him, it was around the time when I think he had did South by Southwest, and he was walking around South by Southwest in like a baby diaper and like nothing. Right. So he showed this to me and I'm like, yo, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I'm not listening to no dude that's walking around in a diaper. Like, nah, I'm not even with it. So I kind of dismissed it. So I think it was sometime last year he had mentioned him to me again, and I had heard a song. I don't remember the name of the song, but I heard the song and I listened to it and I was just like, okay, nah, dude, this is kind of all right. He could kind of rap a little bit, I guess. But I still wasn't all the way sold. But then I heard, what was the name of the project? It wasn't Baby on Baby. I think it was the one before that. I heard that album, and when I really listened to it, I was like, yo, dude is kind of all right. But what really kind of drew me in with him is his videos. I think that dude does some of the best videos since like somebody like Ludacris or Busta or Missy. He's very creative with his videos. It's like, because, nowadays, I don't think a lot of artists take the time to really, make their videos as exciting as the songs, are supposed to be. It's usually just the same cliche type stuff of a bunch of dudes, just standing around each other looking hard or club or a bunch of chicks, twerking and whatnot. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, it's the same type of thing. But the Baby, to me, takes the time to actually really make something that is memorable to where it's like, okay, you know what? This is dope. Like, and this actually, makes me appreciate the song more. But on top of that, the Baby can actually rap. Yeah. That's the one thing I really appreciate about him is that, he rhymes over what you would call mostly like trap or bouncy type beats, but he can rap. Like, he could just flat out, like, did a song that he did on J. Cole's Dreamville compilation, Revenge of the Dreamers. What was the name of it? I can't think of the name, but it's a song with J. Cole, Luke, who's also out of Charlotte, who's real dope, and the Baby. And to me, I thought the Baby had the best verse on there. Like, he totally bodied that joint. And it showed me, it's like, okay, that dude could go out of his element and he could rhyme with anybody. So, he's been one of the guys that I've been second for on the mainstream level as far as the up and coming dudes that I can't say really nothing bad about him. It's like, nah, he's doing his thing. And then the fact that he's a Charlotte dude is even doper because Charlotte, really North Carolina as a whole, I kind of like what's happening right now because between the Baby, between what J. Cole has been doing, and then now you got Rhapsody, who's down with Knife. She's been killing it. you're starting to see a lot more North Carolina artists starting to get their shine right now, and the hip hop world is starting to pay more attention to North Carolina, which I think is dope because there's a lot of talent, in North Carolina, not just in Charlotte, but in surrounding areas, Raleigh, what have you. So I think it's kind of dope to see. But I like the baby a lot. Megan Thee Stallion. I will say this: her songs are not really my cup of tea,
Okay.
but what I do like about her is whenever I've heard her do a freestyle, like she'll go on a radio show and do a freestyle, she can rap.
She can, man. Oh, she can.
Rap. Like I think like when she does her, and I get it, like she, the type of songs that she does, if it makes sense, because she has a that she's catering to, and she's gonna do those type of songs. And I'm not mad at her videos because she's fine as a she's fine as mug. But the girl can rap. Like when she gets on these freestyles and I listen to her, I'm just like, okay, she can actually get busy. So I do rock with her. Outside of that though, I mean, there's a lot of like I like to call them the acronym rappers.
Okay.
Like you got your YFN Lucci's. Now I will say no. There's one dude, a young cat, and actually I think he's from North Carolina. Is YBN Corday. YBN Corday. He dropped that album earlier this year, and I think that young dude is nice too. Let me see, what was the name of his album? Oh, it's called The Lost Boy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very good album. And that dude, what I like about him is like, yeah, he could rap, but then his album, like he really talks a lot about his life, and he had a lot of cool stories to tell about his life and things that he's been through, and it was just a well-rounded album. So he's somebody that I really like a lot right now. But outside of that, as far as on the mainstream level, besides like your J. Cole's, who big fan of, Kendrick, big fan of, Drake, I check for him. I'm not too crazy about a lot of his sing-songy stuff, but on the rap tip, I still check for him. Meek, guys like that. I still rock with that on the mainstream level. But a lot of the stuff I listen to, especially this year, that same dude I was telling you about earlier, Satiro, he wound up putting me onto a lot of underground artists that I didn't even know about myself. Like one by the name of Crime Apple is this cat. He's actually Colombian, but he's from New Jersey. And he has, if you go on any of the streaming sites, he has like at least like 10 projects. Like a lot of them are like EPs of like 4 or 5 songs, but they're fire. Dude rap his behind off. And I've been listening to him a lot. I'm a big fan of the Griselda boys out of Buffalo. That's West Side Gun. That's Conway the Machine. That's Benny the Butcher. Big fan of those.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like those guys are, to me, I don't want to say throwback or nostalgia, but they kind of give you that feeling of that Mob Deep, that punch you in your gut, like vibe type. But it's it's hard. It's real, gutter stuff. There's another dude I got put on too out of DC. His name is Uncle John, but the way he spelled it is like ANKHLE John. He's out of DC, and he had more projects online, but he's also this dude named Makami. Makami is real dope. He's this dude. I think he's from New Jersey too, but I think he's based out of Atlanta. He's got a project with DJ Muggs. For those who don't know, DJ Muggs from Cypress Hill. He's been on a tear lately, as far as like he releases a lot of projects with like various different MCs, and he's got one with Makami called Kill 'Em All, and he's got another one before that too, but that's fire. But it's a lot of the stuff that's in the underground, because for a while, like a couple years ago, I thought even the underground was getting kind of like watered down, but the between last year and this year, that started to pick up. So the thing about it, I would say to people as far as the state of hip hop right now, it just depends on what you're looking for. If you are into more of just the mainstream stuff as far as the stuff that's going to make you dance or bounce or do whatever fly dances out right now. You got a lot to choose from as far as that's concerned. But if you're looking for something with a little bit more, to it than just that, all you got to do is just, because I can tell you about Crime Apple. You go on Spotify or go on Apple Music, and any of these streaming sites, when you listen to one of these artists, they always have like, oh, if you like this, well, you might like this and this and this. All you got
Right.
to do is listen to one artist and then go see the suggestions that they have for other artists, and you'll find a lot more where that came from. So that's pretty much what I do now, is just, listen to, what I like. And then if I see something else that's interesting, I'll get put on to that, and then just kind of go from there. But overall, I think hip hop, for the most part, is in a pretty decent space. It's a lot better than it was a few years ago. Because at one point, I just felt like it was just nothing but what you would call the mumble rap stuff, where it was just like, and all these dudes is coming in, they get overhyped, and then you don't hear from them for like a year or ever again. But I think now it's just starting to, pick back up to where there's a lot more guys and gals. And that's another thing I'm really happy about too. You're starting to see a lot more women that are starting to come up, besides Megan Thee Stallion. Like I said earlier, you got Rhapsody. There's this other girl, what's her name? Tierra Whack. There's this girl named Tierra Whack. She's out of Philadelphia. She's dope. She's real dope. And when you see her videos, she reminds me a lot of kind of like that Missy vibe. Her videos are like real out there and zany and everything, but she could just straight out rap. I think she's dope. And there's a few other women that are out there too. Can't think of the names, but I just like that you're starting to have more of a variety with that too. That's coming into the game. That's pretty cool, because for a while I just felt like it was just Nicki Minaj and that's it. So it's kind of cool that you getting a variety of that. So
And you kind of brought up something along the lines where I want to talk about the producer, or the role of the producer is, you talked about like club music versus like vibe music. So what's the role? Like, people, I think, underestimate the role of a producer. And I know that you've produced more than you've rapped,
right,
because I think that's might be more of your passion.
right.
But so what is the role of the producer to you today, and is enough light sort of shown on them for the role they actually play in hip hop?
Well, I think the producer / beat maker, wherever you want to call it, I think they're everything. Me personally, as far as like a majority of what you hear on the radio, most of what you're hearing is the beat and a hook. Now, certain artists stand out, like the Baby or Megan Thee Stallion, because they have the charisma or the skill to be able to supersede just the beat. But to me, a lot of these, a majority of the folks that you hear, they're interchangeable, but it's that beat that's undeniable. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's a beat that's going to stay with you. So I think the producer is like 80% of the song. And I'm not even saying that just because I make beats myself. It's like, nah, it comes from a fan perspective too. Is I just think the producer, without the producer, what do you have? Without the producer, without the beat, all you have is an acapella, and ain't nobody going to the store or nobody going on their Spotify just to listen to an acapella, except for maybe a DJ. So I really do believe that producers are key, and engineers too. I don't think sound engineers get enough props as they do too, as the people that's mixing all these sounds together. But the producer is very key. And I will say that I don't think a lot of these producers get enough credit like they should. Like, I won't get into it too much, but I follow a lot of, producer blogs and producer podcasts, and there's a lot of conversation between producers about how they're not properly being credited. They're not, you have a lot of guys that have produced hits, like radio hits that unless they put their producer tag at the front of the beat, people don't know who they are. nowadays it's different than when we was growing up, where you would get the CD or album jacket and it had linear notes, so you knew who produced what. Nowadays, you don't really get that. Now, a lot of times, if you're even into that type of thing, you got to go on Wikipedia or Genius to see who produced what on the album, because they're not going to put it on the back track listing like that. So a lot of times, unless you're really tuned in like that, you're just not going to know who produced what. So
why do you think they did that? Why do you think they made that change?
Well, I'll say for one, it's probably more cost effective, because if you think about that's like going in, if you think about when you used to have CDs back then, it cost money to make those booklets. You know what I mean? It costs money to make the jewel cases and everything. So once everything switched over to streaming, these labels save a lot of money because they don't even have to take the time to make a booklet anymore. The part that kind of confuses me, though, is that these streaming sites, any streaming site you go into, you're going to get the album cover. You're going to get all of those things. But I don't like Spotify, for instance. They're kind of hit and miss. Sometimes they'll have it to where you can go to a song and they'll give you the information as far as who wrote what, who produced what. But then there's a lot of times that you still don't get that information. And that's kind of the part that confuses me, because for where we are, in the digital world, it shouldn't be a problem to be able to just have like a digital booklet. And sometimes you get that through iTunes still, but for the most part, it's not something that's standard. But the only thing I could think of is that it's just more cost effective, for the labels to not have to list all that stuff, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, if I'm the producer, though, I'm kind of still sideways, because you're using my work and I'm not getting credit for my work.
Yeah,
I feel like that's like a copywriting issue or something like that.
Yeah, and like I said, it's like, there's arguments right now where you got guys that, either they're not being credited properly or they're not even getting paid, because it's so much different than when it was back in the day for producers, to where back, like let's say DJ Premier, for instance. If you wanted to get a track from DJ Premier, it wasn't you wrote an email to Primo like, yo, let me get a beat, and then he's going to send you a beat and then you good money without money being exchanged. No, first of all, if you're going to get a track from Premier, you're going to have to, it's going to be like trying to find the Holy Grail, trying to get in contact with him. Then
right.
In order to even get a beat from him, you're going to have to pay him half up front, whatever his producer fee is. So back then, you see a producer fee just starting off can be like 10 G's per track, right? So before he even does a track for you, you got to pay him half, and then you got to pay the other half upon once the song is completed. And that was standard across, from your Timberlands to your Just Blazes to your Neptune, so on and so forth. Now it's totally different. Now I see situations where a producer may not even know that their song is on the album until the album drops.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't get paid anything. So then once the album drops, now the label reaches out to the producer, unless you have a name, like unless you're like a Swiss Beats, unless you're, one of those type of guys who has a name, command, those type of things. If you're not as big, yeah, you go through a lot of, hoops just trying to get your money, but your song is being played constantly on the radio. Your song is being, is out there as a hit, but you still didn't get paid yet. I just seen a joint from this dude, Sunny Digital, who was produced for a bunch of hits for a bunch of these cats out now. He was talking about how for a couple of songs, he still hasn't gotten paid, and it's been a year. That's crazy to me.
Wow.
That's crazy to me. But you hear a lot of stories like that. It's just a different time, because these labels just a lot of the times are just, finding the most cost effective way to be able to get around, paying the producer, which is crazy. And to me, I feel like this only happens in hip hop and rap, because if you can't really do that with a pop producer, you can't do that with, a country producer or a rock producer. But for some reason with hip hop and rap, you can get away with that, so it's definitely been an issue that's been, going on for a while. And I think it's kind of unfortunate, because again, you're talking about, to me, the most important part of the song, the most important part of the track. Without the producer, what do you have? So it's like something really needs to be done to kind of put it more in the producer's favor. And then a lot of it too is producers are starting to kind of take it up on their own to kind of put themselves out there more, whether it's, branding themselves. You have producers that start their own podcasts, or they might come out with their own albums and just kind of do things to get their names out there more. But, that's what they got to do, because otherwise, if you just leave it up to the label and you leave it up to the rapper, unless you got a relationship with them, they don't care. They're going to use your track and keep it moving.
So speaking of, so using tracks and do the whole complete project, I've always been intrigued about how to have a fair assessment of an album. So I know normally a person can listen to an album one time and a lot of people be like, oh, that's trash. But
Right.
I'm of the opinion that you have to listen to it a couple times. So since you have produced and do produce, and you have rapped and you do rap, and you're a consumer and a connoisseur of the art, how many times do you think is a good number of times to listen to something to get a full evaluation, appreciation of whether the work is quality or sort of below quality?
I think for me, it's usually about 3 times. And it took me a while to realize that about myself, but I think for me, it takes about 3 times. Um, on the first listen, a lot of times it's like I'm kind of skimming through it, meaning I'm trying to even figure out if I even, want to give this the time of day, because there's certain albums, and it's really based on taste. There's certain albums you might listen to the first like 3 tracks, and if you're not feeling it, you're not going to revisit it again. So then it's just all right, it's over and done with. But then there's some times that you could listen to something to where on the first listen you might think it's all right. It's like, all right, this is okay. I'll come back and listen to it. You listen to a second time and you just like, okay, I'm liking this a little bit better. All right, bet. And then by the third time you listen to it, if by that time you're not like, oh, this is fire, or oh, this is just whack, usually by that third time you've lived with the record enough to where you can say either or. A good example for me is Kendrick Lamar's "To Pimp a Butterfly" album. Now
Okay.
I'm a big fan, right? So the first time I listened to that album, and I love Section 80, I love Good Kid, Mad City, but the first time I heard "To Pimp a Butterfly," I'll never forget. I was working for this vendor company. I was driving this box truck, and I was playing the album while I was driving. And the entire time I'm listening to this album, I had this like weird look on my face, like, what is this? It's like I feel like I like this, but I don't know exactly what this is. Like, what is this? So I listened to the whole thing from front to back the first time around, and by the end of it, I was just like, I didn't want to, people was hitting me up like, yo, what you think of the Kendrick? And I was like, I don't know yet. I'll let you know after the third time I listened to it. By the third time I listened to it, I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And matter of fact, I just seen something on Twitter the other day where they was talking about um, so far what are the best albums of the decade. And for me, that's if that's not the album, that's got to be one of the top 3 for me. It's "To Pimp a Butterfly," but it took me 3 listens to really appreciate it, because it's such it's an adventure. It's a sound adventure. That's the best way I could put it. And for that time, and really now, I haven't heard really anything hip hop wise that was just so like, I don't know. It's just hard to describe it, but I mean, it's an incredible album. But it took me 3 listens to really appreciate it, and I just think that's the best way to go. Is like to give albums at least 3 good listens before you really, make a decision on how you feel about it.
And so with opinion shows out there, there's hip hop is a culture thing. So you mentioned before, like there's some producers who are like, let me just put the ball in my court and control some of it and create a podcast or something where I can sort of get myself out in front. But then there's TV shows that are sort of themed around hip hop. So
Right.
what's your opinion about sort of the off-spin culture that exists from the music as far as the shows and the podcasts?
Well, as far as like the podcast. You got some pretty good, podcasts as far as like I like the Joe Budden podcast. I think he's built a really cool platform for himself. And that's really derived from the previous show that he was on, Everyday Struggle, from Complex. I'll be honest with you, as far as Everyday Struggle, I'm kind of hit or miss on that. I haven't really watched it, and I started probably watching it after a while, when I took a break, probably like a couple of weeks ago. I could only take that dude academic in doses. It's like I can only do that in doses because I don't know is I don't know. I think he sometimes could be a little bit too just I don't know, just disrespectful with certain things, and then just plus the type of music that they cover is a lot of stuff that I'm not really into. But as far as like the way they format the show, and for it being a show based around the current state of rap, I think is effective. It's kind of like a first take / disputed type show. So I think they do a pretty good job overall. But I think Joe Budden show is pretty good. What's another one? I listen to a lot of producer podcasts. So you got what's that? Producer Grind. That's probably like my favorite one. Producer Grind, for anybody that's really into finding out about the people behind the music. That's a good podcast to check out. They invite like everybody who's current, who's produced different hits. They'll do an intensive interview with them, and I think they do a really good job. Willpower, he has one called Free Game that's pretty good. Then as far as like just general podcasts, I just started checking out this one from Adam 22. He doesn't just have hip hop artists, but from time to time he will have hip hop artists on there. I think he's pretty good. Nori's Drink Champs. I think Drink Champs is probably one of the dopest ones because everybody knows that Nori's been in the game forever, so he knows everybody. So to be able to get all these different legends on the show and get them in a relaxed atmosphere to where they drinking and they telling all these dope stories, I think that's an excellent podcast right there. So that's a good one. And then as far as like shows that kind of I guess you could say kind of use hip hop, or put it this way, like Love and Hip Hop. I watch Love and Hip Hop. And the thing about Love and Hip Hop, to be honest, they need to take the hip hop out of it, or they really need to take the love out of it. It ain't really no hip hop. What it is that you just happen to have like certain rappers or urban artists that wind up getting involved with the show. But to be honest, that show is just a lot of ratchetness and a lot of foolery, but they don't really tie too much with really the only one, as far as particularly with Love and Hip Hop, that actually, was able to have a career outside of that, besides like K Michelle, is Cardi B.
Right.
And the thing about Cardi was dope is like that's how I got put on to Cardi B, was through Love and Hip Hop. And when I first watched her on Love and Hip Hop, I loved her. I thought she was hilarious, and her personality. I was just like, yeah, she's funny. I like her. Her energy. I knew she was rapping, but I didn't really take it seriously. I didn't think it was going to become what she is now. And to see what she is now is really, really dope, because you have a lot of artists on that show that you see rapping and whatnot, and nothing comes of it. But she definitely took the ball and ran with it to where she's like one of the biggest things smoking in the game right now. And I think it's pretty cool to see. But as far as the show itself, it's just if you want to see just foolishness and just dumb stuff, that's the show to watch. But as far as like how it ties into like hip hop and culture, I don't think it's the greatest representation of that.
So for you, as an example, and we've had conversations, you were really the motivation behind me even doing or starting a podcast at all. And so tell the people a little bit about what your motivation was, because you as a producer, you literally are living what you just said other producers have done, where you created a podcast, but yours was sort of an audio and video format. So what was the sort of the goal of that, the expectation, and Are you going to come back with it, or are you going to take some time with it? What's up with your podcast, and tell me more about that?
All right. So, my show that I had was called the Dorse Kode Show. I did it for I really didn't do it for that long, maybe a few months, half the year, something like that. And how that came about, it was kind of out of nowhere. A good friend of mine by the name of Mark, one of my old college buddies, he had kind of came to me during a conversation one day, was just like, yo, you should do a show. And I was like, huh? Like, why do you think I should do a show? He was like, dude, you have a lot, you have great insight on, especially when it comes to hip hop and music. He's like, but not only that, he's like, you got good insight when it comes to sports and just things in general. He's like, you should just try it out. So I kind of fought it for a little while because I was just like, nah, nobody gonna want to really listen to me, But on a whim one day, I was just like, you know what, screw it. I'll just see what I could come up with. So I started messing around with the video editing software I had on my laptop. And I never did anything with video before, never tried anything like this. And it was all trial and error. And, I was filming stuff on my phone and eventually started filming stuff through the laptop, learned how to edit on myself, which was a very tedious process. And that was probably the reason why I kind of fell back, because it was taking a lot of time. But, I kind of did it in a way to where, at first it was a lot about just hip hop, and I was doing album reviews from time to time and, speaking on, just a lot of hip hop topics. But then it would vary to kind of other things that I might come across. I definitely spoke about sports. I had a separate section just for sports. But then I also would talk about, if there was certain things going on in the world, period, that might have caught my attention. That, especially around the time, because I think I started the show around the time when Trump got elected. Yeah, matter of fact, I did. I literally started the show the day after Trump was elected. So
Wow.
So the very first show I ever did, you can find it on YouTube now, is I'm talking about my reaction to Trump being the president. And it was kind of a depressing show, but that's how it started, So I do plan on bringing it back at some point. It's just right now, I'm in the middle of, I'm working, I'm training right now, and that's taking a lot of my time. And it's not feasible for me to at least do the visual aspect. But, now that's I've been put on to, through you, thanks to you, through the way of doing the audio aspect. At some point, I'm probably going to really start getting more into that and, just start getting more back into just strictly the podcast, side of things. And, just kind of keeping the same format as far as mostly around hip hop, but, also just around whatever might come across my way that I feel like, I might want to talk about. And then the great thing about this is I can invite guests on. So I'll definitely have you on there and be able to have other people that, I really, value their opinions on things. I'll get the opportunity to do that. But that's probably not going to be until I'm going to really take my time to kind of, the rest of the year to kind of plan that out properly. And I probably won't come back with that officially until sometime in 2020, I'm thinking.
Fair enough. And speaking of comebacks, and I'm looking forward to it because you did a good job. I think you did it for more than a couple of months, but you did a good job when you did it. Speaking of comebacks, in the sort of the hip hop catalog of things, if you could pick an artist to come back and do one more album, artist, and I mean as a group as well, who would you have come back to do a new album?
That's a dope question. What's so funny about that is I've actually had a lot of the artists that I was hoping would come back that I never thought would come back, came back. So for instance, last year or probably the year before, when Tribe dropped their last album, I think
it was last year. Yeah.
Yeah. I never thought Tribe was coming back ever. And that was such a pleasant surprise, even though, unfortunately, we lost, Fife, rest in peace. But that was an incredible album. And I was so happy as a Tribe fan to be able to have that album, that last album, because the way they left off, you know, a lot of Tribe fans, we were sad about that. So to be able to have them to do one more album, I thought that was really great. Recently, we just had Little Brother, Fonte and Big.
Yeah.
Yeah, they dropped one of my favorite albums of the year, May the Lord Watch. I love that album, and there were another group that I didn't think was ever going to come back, and they surprised us, and they came with a banging album. So definitely appreciate that. But as far as there's work, I'm really interested to see what DMX is going to do.
Yeah, he is coming back, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what DMX is going to do, because I seen that I heard he just did a song on the soundtrack for what's that? It's Swiss Beats has a show that he executive produced with Forrest Whitaker. What's it called?
I don't know, but I did see that he was talking about, because I think Swiss is supposed to do the whole album.
Right. So that's and that's the key, I think, for DMX. If Swiss Beats can do all the production for X's next album, I think that would be really dope. I'm also interested to see what Wu-Tang is going to do, because there's been word that Wu-Tang wants to do at least one more album, because the last album they came out with, you know, people wasn't satisfied with at all because of the production. So there's word that Ghostface is heavily involved with picking the producers for the next album. So I'm really interested. Excuse me. I'm really interested to see how that's going to come about.
And they did a show at One Music Fest last month. So they was just together recently, all of them.
Yeah. You know, and you know, I know, and then plus with the show that they have out right now on Hulu. And before that, the documentary that they came out with earlier, which was excellent. I think now would be a good time for Wu-Tang to be able to drop something, you know, one more, you know, just one last album. I think will be dope. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. But those are the main ones I can think of now. I'll say DMX and Wu-Tang. I'm really interested to see what they could do next.
So speaking of which, because I just mentioned shows, what's the best live show you've ever been to? Because hip hop is a culture thing, because the culture is immersed in the live show. So what's the best show you ever been to?
Two best shows I've ever been to. Hate to keep saying Tribe, but Tribe Called Quest. This was my freshman year during homecoming. They performed at Morehouse with West Side Connection opened up before them, and then they was the main headliners, and they killed it. That was lovely. And then probably the second best show I've ever been to was DMX twice. I seen DMX in New York with the Rough Rider tour, the Rough Riders and Cash Money tour, and I lost my voice. And then the second time was in Charlotte. He was on a rock tour. It was DMX, Godsmack, and Limp Bizkit, and he killed it. And I lost my voice again. And it was so ill because it was a rock and roll show, so I've never been to a rock show before. And DMX like tore it down. And even Limp Bizkit was crazy too, but DMX tore it down. I'm trying to think, is there anybody else? Because I've seen Wu-Tang was dope. I've seen them before. Who else? Common did a really good show. But I would probably say the best would be between DMX and Tribe Called Quest. Oh, and Busta Rhymes. Busta Rhymes is definitely one of the all-time greatest performers ever.
So with that, like you're talking about some artists that have notoriety. So let's kind of come flip back on the other side. What do you think is the most slept on album ever? Because there's a lot of albums that have been out there that people's like, yo, I didn't know that was good. What do you think is like one of the most slept on albums ever?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. One of the most slept on albums ever. I would say, I want to take people back on this one, and people may not even think it's slept on. I just don't think people talk about it enough. De La Soul Stakes is High.
Oh, okay.
De La Soul Stakes is High. This was released, I want to say 95, 96. That album was like a soundtrack to my senior year in high school. And I can go back to that album now, and the album just, what's ill about that album is like a lot of the stuff that they was talking about as far as the state of hip hop at that time correlates to today, which is kind of dope. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, I think De La Soul and particularly that album, those guys were ahead of their time. And a lot of times I don't think they really get enough appreciation for not just that album, but really their whole catalog. But that's like my favorite album from them. And I don't see that come up enough when we talk about all-time greatest albums or, what have you. Stakes is High is an incredible album, and I encourage people to check that out. Like, that's definitely a slept-on joint to me.
And so I'm going to go and I'm going to slide in and say, you know what? You as an artist, we haven't talked enough about you, so I was kind of leading with, the slept on album, because you could be arrogant and be like, my albums is the most slept on albums. So I want to ask a 2-part question. So, how not really how many albums, but like of the albums you've made, which one is your favorite one, and what would you consider your sort of rhyme style or the influences to what you've made? Because I've heard all your work. And I mean, again, we've known each other, so I like all your stuff. But for you and a little bit of self-promotion, what about you and your albums?
Man, as far as my stuff, I would probably say, the best project that I've done for myself was the last one that I did, Preschool. That, like I said earlier, that was an album that I did that was based on my childhood, growing up in New York. And the way I broke it down was like the first half of that album was me living in Queens, New York, in Far Rockaway, Queens, with my mom, and everything that we was going through that prompted us to wind up moving out of there and moving to Long Island, New York. And that's the second half of the album is, me talking about my experiences growing up in Long Island. And, I appreciate that album, for one, because I've never really done like a whole concept album like that. And I was very strategic in the fact that I didn't want to just rap just for the sake of rapping. It's like, no, I wanted to really tell stories and tell my story. And I felt like the best way to introduce people to me is to talk to people about how I grew up. And, on the album cover is a picture of me as a kid and my mom. And my mom is a huge inspiration to, me even doing music at all, because she was a singer and a songwriter herself, along with my dad. But, my mom was really the main one that, got me, she's definitely was one of those parents that was playing, all types of classic soul music around the house when we was cleaning up and everything. And she would take me out to shows and things like that. And, she was an excellent writer, like I said. So it was like, I always feel like I got my writing ability from her. And then just that appreciation for music in general, I got from her. So it was really important to me to showcase her throughout that album, as her, somebody as being the foundation, for what I'm doing now. But I'd probably say, that album right there is, probably, the most special to me.
So I got 3 more for you. The first one, because we are both New Yorkers, and New York is the mecca of basketball. So I would be remiss to not talk about the NBA, because the NBA is about to come back. I absolutely love basketball.
Yes, sir.
I am a Knicks fan. I said it publicly, but I've given up my Knicks fandom probably 5 or 6 times. So with that, we're not gonna talk about the Knicks at all, or the other team in New York that is supposed to be better than the Knicks.
Let's just
So, but I do want to talk about the NBA, because this NBA season seems to be like really on the cusp of being exciting, because it went from a sort of shift from super teams to dynamic duos. So I'm really excited about what's coming up. So what do you think the NBA season will look like? Do you have any predictions for like the surprises in the playoffs, or even surprises or who win the championship?
Man, let me tell you, I'm super excited about this season. I've actually been more excited. I usually say I'm a football fan first, but honestly, the past like 3 years, I've come to love the NBA so much more. I just think it's just been so exciting, and particularly with everything that happened over the summer with free agency, like you said, with the emergence of all of these different duos, man. I think this is dope, man. So even though, like you, I am a Knicks fan. I have given up my fandom multiple times, and we're not going to talk about them. But that's the beauty of being a fan of the league, a fan of the NBA. Period. Is like even if your team sucks, there still is so much more exciting basketball and teams and players out there that you still want to tune in. Last year, those finals, it was unfortunate that what happened with Kevin Durant, but those finals, man, was excellent, man. I was so sad that it didn't go to a game 7 because that game 6 last year was off the chain.
Yeah.
It
Ooh,
was
yeah.
boy. So this year, man, I'm really interested to see, how things are gonna go down. You got Russell Westbrook with James Harden. I want to see what they're gonna do. Of course, you got Kawhi Leonard with Paul George, which I'm still can't believe that one. That's gonna be crazy. But based off of what I saw the other night from the Lakers, really interested to see because I've seen a lot of people picking the Lakers to go to the championship, and I was just kind of like, let's see what happens. But Anthony Davis looks like a man on a mission. And I know it's just preseason, but Anthony Davis really looks like a man on a mission. If that dude can stay healthy and LeBron can stay healthy, and those rest of those surrounding pieces could really, build their chemistry together, I think they probably have a very good chance of making it to the finals. I don't know if they're gonna win, but I think they have a very good chance of making it to the finals. I would probably right now kind of, even though technically the Clippers might have the better team, especially defensively. Because once Paul George does come back, because I don't think he's going to be there for the first month, but once he comes back, they're probably going to be one of the top defensive teams. But I still, that Anthony Davis factor, man, I still might give the Lakers the edge over the Clippers in the West. Besides that, the other team I would look for out in the West that might be a sleeper is the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
Because besides, you got the Joker, you got Jamal Murray, and the rest of the crew, but then you also got what's his name, Porter Jr., who didn't even play last year. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's hurt. So now I want to see how he's going to get integrated, and if that dude can show what he was supposed to be, they might be a problem. I think the Utah Jazz is another team to look out for now that they got Mike Conley over there. They're going to be a tough out. I'm a big Damian Lillard fan, so I always keep a lookout for what Portland's going to do. But the one team definitely look out for, I would say that might be a sleeper, is the Denver Nuggets. I think they might be a little bit of a problem, and I don't want to act like Golden State is going to be bums out here, even though Clay's not going to be there, and of course they lost Kevin Durant. But I gotta wait and see how things are going to turn out because there's going to be a lot on Steph Curry's plate, on Steph Curry and Draymond Green's plate. I know they do have my man, what's his name? They used to play for the Nets last year.
D'Lo. Yeah.
They got him, and he
D'Angelo
might,
Russell. Yeah.
yeah, he might be able to help them out. But with how stacked the West is, I don't know. That's going to be a tough to see if they can get. I don't see them, getting to the Western Conference Finals or nothing unless Clay comes back and he's just all world with it. But I don't see it. But I would say my pick out in the West would be the Lakers. As far as the East, it's between the Milwaukee Bucks, with the Greek Freak. I think me personally, Greek Freak was my pick for MVP last year. I know everybody was screaming James Harden. I'm sorry, I was with the Greek Freak. If that dude could come with just a little bit of a jumper and a little bit of a 3-point shot, I think they got a shot to make it back to the Eastern Conference Finals. But that all depends on what the Sixers do, and that depends on if Ben Simmons could get a jumper. And everybody got all excited because he hit a jumper the other night, his first jumper ever. His first 3-pointer ever. I need to see him do that in the game more consistently. If he can do that in the game more consistent, and then also Embiid could get through the season, get through the playoffs without being hurt or sick, I think that would be interesting to see. Outside of that, I don't Boston. I love Kemba Walker. I was sad to see him leave the Charlotte Hornets, but I think he's in a good situation with Boston, so I'm really interested to see how that's going to work out. The Indiana Pacers on the low, I think, just have like a really solid team. Nate McMillan has really gotten the boys playing well even when Oladipo got hurt. So I'll keep a lookout for them. Outside of that, though, I think the East is kind of a toss-up as far as out of the top 2 or 3 teams. Like, I'm not really sure, who's going to kind of creep up into the playoff picture. We just know that the damn Knicks aren't. But I think it's going to be an exciting season, man. And then also, I'm really watching out for this Zion Williams, man. Zion Williamson. I'm really watching out for him. It's been a lot of hype behind him, but to be honest, I think I don't know if he'll quite live up to the hype, but I think he's going to be exciting to see. You already starting to see that in the preseason. The dude had 29 points the other night, off of dunks, and I like his energy, man. It's like that dude just goes all out, and as long as he can stay healthy, I think it'll be cool. And I think Lonzo, man, he's another one I'm really watching out for. I'm really happy to see that he's kind of moved away from his dad controlling things, and he's kind of, stepping up and being his own man. And I think him being in New Orleans is going to be a good situation for him, especially having with somebody like Drew Holiday that could, mentor him, and Alvin Gentry. And, they're going to be a squad. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to be exciting to watch. So I'm definitely going to be looking out for the Pelicans this year too.
And and the NBA is really, really hip hop, and that's really why the question was included, and I think that matters. So 2 more, next to last one. I know everybody asked this question, so we got to ask it. And I'm not gonna say dead or alive, but at the moment, who do you think are the top 5 MCs in the game? And I mean like active now, because if we go forever, we're gonna talk about Biggie and all, and that's cool, but I don't want to talk about them no more. So I'm talking about like in the game right now.
Right now, all right, for me, and this is just for me, and this is I'm not gonna put it in any order. I'm just throwing names out. All right, I would say Freddie Gibbs. I think he's one of the best pound for pound MCs in the game right now. I think J. Cole. I think Kendrick Lamar. I think who else? I would say I'm gonna put my man Crime Apple up there. I'm gonna put my man Crime Apple. For those who don't know, just go look for the name Crime Apple. And number 5, you know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say the Baby.
Really? Okay.
I'm gonna say the Baby. I think he's that good. I think he's that good. But those are current right now. That's not an all time. That's not, please don't come at me. And that's just right now at the moment, who I can think of who's, I feel like really making noise right now. But yeah, those are the 5 I could think of right now.
Well, and my reasoning for specifically doing that is for right now is because I have this personal philosophy that you can't have an all time because time didn't end. Like the thing, whatever the genre is, has to end for an all-time list to be made, because that means there's no new contributors. And I just think it's unfair to current artists to have an all-time list.
Nah, I think that's an excellent way of looking at it, because you could kind of correlate that with sometimes, well, really most times with sports too. We get into the debates about, Jordan and LeBron and everything. And even for me, I've kind of fine-tuned it to where I say, I'm like, Jordan is the greatest that I've seen growing up, or for my era. He's the greatest that I saw. But technically I can't say he's the greatest of all time, only because, well, I never got to see Wilt Chamberlain really play like that. I never got to see freaking Dr. J and Jerry West and all them boys play. And then you see now with what LeBron is doing, it's like it's a whole different game, and he's definitely the best I've seen, as far as with this era. But then we don't know what's coming after LeBron. So, like you said, go to the rap world, and it's tough to say, because I've seen people that will say, Biggie is the greatest. I've seen people say Nas is the greatest. I've seen whatever, and I'm like, no, these are all greats. They're definitely all greats, but can't say that they're necessarily the greatest, especially a Biggie, because he technically only had 2 albums. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And then also it depends on the eras as well, as far as like how they adapted to the eras, like, and how consistent they was and things like that. And then there's always somebody that might be slightly better. You just never know what that's going to happen. So yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. It's like it's just hard to say a greatest of all time, because time does not end. So all you can really say is like who is great for you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And leave it at that. And that's always just interchangeable. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So with this, the final thought, I call up the podcast and the show Voices of because I want the voice of the people that have chosen to contribute to this undertaking that I'm doing to be the focus. And so I always like to have the final thought to come from the person, where it can be something that's on their heart or something that we've talked about in the conversation. So I'll leave the final word to you and say, hey, anything you want to leave the people with about the state of hip hop, or any personal things that are on your heart that you want to share with people to just help them either know you better, or just to understand, contribute your contribution to sort of the world.
Wow. Well, first off, once again, thank you for having me. This has been a really, really, dope conversation. I mean, it's always great talking to you, but this right here, it's been really cool. I've never been a guest on anybody's podcast before, so this is definitely a lot of fun. And I really appreciate you, man, and I encourage you to, keep on at it with this, because you're an excellent host and everything. So this has been really great. But I guess the one thing, I will say is that, as far as when we talk about the state of hip hop and, things of that nature, or just, music in general, I see a lot of times, there's a lot of debates about which generation is better and who's this and who's that. Look, I've learned in my rotations around this earth to understand that, to me, music in general is like ice cream. You like certain flavors. You might like chocolate ice cream. I like strawberry. You're not going to convince. I mean, chocolate ice cream. I'm not going to convince you to like strawberry ice cream. It's a matter of preference. So, meaning I'm saying that is like, and I've had to learn this myself. It's like there's certain things I like, there's certain things I don't like, there's certain things I could be open-minded to, there's certain things that I just don't rock with at all. But the thing about it is, the one thing I see a lot online and social media is that people could become like real nasty and personal with their attacks for people's opinions on things. And I think, we need to get to a point to understanding it's like, it's people's preference. If this is what you like, this is what you like. You can't change people's minds. Let people rock with what they like. If you don't understand it, it's not for you to understand it. It's as simple as that. And again, this is something that took me a long time for me to really understand about myself, to where, I can approach things on a level of just like, hey, if he likes this and she likes this, that's cool. If I don't like it, it's not for me. But, it is what it is. It's just whatever ice cream you like, So basically, I'm just saying, let people, just live, let people enjoy things how they enjoy it. And, just find where you fit in and just rock with what you rock with, if that makes sense. But, that's about it.